Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lost and Found. I'm Gail Washington here with.
Frankie. And I don't like when you say it here with.
Technically, okay, we're in different time zones.
We're together. I get it, but I feel like a game show. And I'm going to come on down.
Right. And one day we probably could do a live together at the same place at the same time.
Right.
But that's going to be down the line. This week, we wanted to continue to the discussion about relationships because the feedback I've gotten on my side from people who are going through divorces and relationships, it was hilarious how many people were like, yeah, I'm going to get back to you on that divorce thing because they are either newly divorced or going through something in their relationship that honestly is about to lead to it, either divorce or murder. So hopefully they figure that out before.
Okay, yeah.
But when we ended,
I'm not going to condone
the murder,
the whole divorce thing, but I'm damn sure I'm not going to condone murder. That's just all kinds of wrong.
Right. But
So,
what kind of feedback did you get on your end?
Well, it's actually kind of funny, and I took it, tongue-in-cheek type of situation, where some people were like, well, Frankie, you've only been married 4 years. How on earth are you talking about marriage? And I have found, I don't care if you're married 4 years, 4 minutes, 4 days, 40 years, it doesn't matter. When you are married, there's a whole different dynamic to living and experiencing life, no matter how many years you've been married. And I thought it was kind of weird, and I want to put out there, no, I'm not an authority on marriage, just like Gail is not the authority on being single.
Oh, Lord, no.
We're coming, right? But we're coming from our perspective. And yes, in the 4 years that I've been married, I've had to learn some things, and yeah, I had to grow. And that's what we all should be doing, whether we're married or single. So I want to just put out there that we're coming from our perspective, and we're not, what do you say? We're not professionals.
Absolutely
in the
not.
sense of, right, we have all the answers. But one of the things that we're talking about, Gail, that I really wanted to explore a little bit further, and we could talk a little bit more about the divorce situation, because I had yet another individual come to me recently to tell me that, they're going through a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
But what I found interesting in a conversation I had this past week was with someone that's actually single.
Mm-hmm.
And she has been single for at least a good 10 years. Her husband passed away at least 10 years ago, and she's been single, and she got back into the dating scene and wanting to go out and date and so on and so forth. And she said that she had listened to our podcast last week, and she's struggling with where to find quality men, or how to go about finding quality men.
Mars. We're waiting for them to colonize Mars. Yeah.
Right. And it made me kind of sad, because she was like, I tried a dating site, and they matched me with two separate people at one time, at one point, and she went out on two separate dates, and one, she said that it was just held to the no, almost immediate. The second one was he was self-absorbed into, wanting to talk about him all the time. Everything was about him. The first one that was the held to the no was that he asked her right out the gate if she wanted children, and her response is that no, she does not want any children. She's getting of age, and she's like, no, I'm past that point. I don't want any children. And so he said, basically the date's over. You go your way, I go mine. Mm-hmm. And so as she's telling me her dating situation, I started thinking to myself, wow, where do you begin? How do you go about it? How are you finding quality people? And you shared some stuff about the online dating life and that environment. And it just freaked me out even further, to where I'm like, you know what? I'm grateful that I am married. I'm actually very blessed that I am married. Mm-hmm. But if I were to ever have to go back into the dating scene, I think I'd probably just stay single and get a dog and maybe a plant.
Okay. Plants, you know me and my plants. I'll do plants. But here is the formula, honestly, for how to find that specific person that you are meant to be with. Call Oprah, have her get Jesus on the main line, And that's where you start, okay?
Okay. So
Because
first call Oprah.
first call
I'm,
Oprah.
look, I'm taking notes so I can pass this on. Call Oprah
Okay.
and have her get Jesus on the line.
Have
Okay.
Jesus on the main line, and I am so certain that there's probably a really good pool of dynamic men with good hearts who know how to respect women, because that's far more important to me than your income, what kind of car you drive. I've never been that person, and the sad part is our generation latched onto so much crap that was being spoon fed to us by the media, being gold diggers, being, calling men dogs and things like that. A lot of that comes from home training. Because I remember the first time I got into an argument with a boy and called him a dog, my mother literally snatched me, told me, don't you ever again let me hear you call anybody, especially somebody's child, a dog. You are making a reference to his mother. It took me a few years to understand that, but my mother
Right.
did not tolerate me disrespecting anyone or anyone disrespecting me. So the
Right.
respect thing for me, I'm almost like a mafia boss when it comes to being
Oh
respected.
God. All right.
I'm just not going to tolerate it. Okay.
Bodies
So,
go missing, or people go missing, and his body is just floating up in the river and stuff. But no, I mean, I think that in my mind, and you mentioned, I think, in our last recording that you do want to be married. But
you know,
what does that look like from a single person's perspective?
especially,
And,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, that's pretty much it. That's my question.
Oh, okay. See,
What does that look like?
I don't know. I have no earthly idea since I have absolutely never been, first of all, in a relationship. Your friend has been married, so she has a point of reference. My mother gave me permission to, because back then parents did things like that. They kind of plotted some stuff out for us. At the age of 16, I was allowed to start dating. And I've had 43 years to get it right. But I've never, in the course of the 43 years of my mom saying, go with God, I'm going to let you make some decisions on your own, it has not happened organically. So when I say marriage, first, I'm not certain what the paper is about, because if you know how to respect, honor, and be loyal to that person you stand in front of God to building that covenant, technically, you're signing a paper to tell the government you're going to pay your taxes and jointly and all of that stuff. So,
Right. Well, that's the mechanics of it,
that's the
right?
mechanics of it. But for
Yeah.
me, I have a big heart and so much love to be able to share that with someone and to share my life as it is. Okay, maybe not this week because I got a few things going on. But I remember working in corporate America, taking all these trips, staying in five-star hotels, going to all these different places, and always having that plus one. And even calling people saying, hey, you know what? And not necessarily men, just friends. Like, hey, you want to come hang out with me? I got the hotel room. I can just get double beds and we can hang out in the city, because most of my training would take place in the day and I had the evenings free. I had the per diem. And I was like, this would be wonderful to share this with someone. When I take trips, it's normally with family. And again, I'm a human being from planet Earth and have these things called hormones. I'd like to, have an actual one person to have that with. I'm not a spread your love around sort of girl. So,
Well, that, actually, not spreading your love around. This is never mind.
right.
But I guess what I'm getting at, and I'm really curious, and maybe some individuals that will check out our podcast can comment if they are single. Where are you going?
Okay.
To
Okay.
meet men?
Okay, let me first put this disclaimer out there. We are not sponsored by anyone, so the comments made are solely based on experience and not
Right.
any one person. I have done the online dating thing. It's been years since I did it because it was so incredibly flawed when they first started, which is why a few people got murdered in the process of trying to find love online. And you can Google that. There's more than one case
Right.
of someone losing their life with that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
In respect to,
Wait, I'm sorry. That just adds to the fear of dating. Like, okay, Gail, listen, we come from a generation, we come from a time period, and you and I had this conversation. I never really dated, so I don't understand it. And to hear the horror stories that are out there,
And
I'm
see,
just like, I cannot wrap my, and I'm being 100% serious. I just cannot wrap my mind around it. But yes, you tried dating services.
well, that's
Maybe
part.
explain that a little bit.
Well, that's part of where we missed the mark because the generations before us, and I'm going to go 3 years before me because all of my siblings are married in relationships, have children, or some permeation of that. There was a courting ritual that happened where, years before us, the boy, it would come to the house and ask the parents if they could date the daughter. And that was a ritual that actually happened. And my sisters had the privilege of that. No boy was going to come to the door, sit out in the car, honking a horn, expecting you to come to the door because my father, in his infinite wisdom, would go to the door with his shotgun. He was that kind of crazy. So, no boys were coming sitting out and just honking for us. When it came time for me to date, I had the same understanding of what my sister had, that was the courting ritual. It changed. And again, what was spoon fed to us through the media, the whole dynamics of our music, of our dance, and everything was changing around that time. And whereas they got songs about love and nurturing and caring for each other, it hit my generation songs of hoe this, bitch this, dog this, and all of that. That's what started with my generation. So those boys who knew better still jumped on the bandwagon for that. Now, when I did start dating was pretty much in the military, and that was a colossal nightmare, the level of disrespect that came with it. When I did the online dating, I was in my 30s because that's about the time it came around. Match.com is based in Dallas. Again, we are not sponsored. Match.com is based in Dallas, and when they were first getting started, they had some type of focus group, which I sat in on. Up until that point, I had tried Match.com probably for a few weeks, and during that focus group, I said to them, and I'm quoting myself, you need to purge your system because every black man on your site is married. I said that to the person in the room and they looked at me like I was crazy. I was like, no.
Okay, but what prompted you to say that?
It prompted me to say that because when I was, you go through and you select several people and you start communicating with them. I remember one guy specifically. We had gotten to the point of talking on the phone. We talked for at least, 4 or 5 weeks. And when I finally got his full name, I got a background in law enforcement. Yeah, there's going to be a background check. So I looked him up on the internet, and there was a consistency with a woman who had his same last name, and they had the same address for, several moves. And I said, okay, hey, Lamar, whatever the hell his name was, somebody named Jane is in your household? Is that your sister?
Oh, yeah, that's my sister.
Never heard from him again. He hung up, and that was it.
Wow.
Yeah, that was just one. Now, here's the one that really, really stands out to me. Had talked to this guy for, wait a minute. I'm skipping ahead. This wasn't a Match.com. Before Match.com, most of the radio stations in Dallas had dating sites because people were complaining about not being able to find quality people to date. So several of the radio stations would have phones you could call in and you start communicating. One specifically, this guy, again, talked to him for over a month. We had the best connection. We finally decided to meet. I said, okay, because back then I was a big whopping 170 pounds. And yeah, like gargantuan. And he was into bodybuilding. I said, okay, I would like to understand, do you have an issue with weight? Because it seems to be off-putting to a lot of men. So
wait, I'm sorry. Did you say 100? How many pounds?
170.
Okay, so you didn't say 270, 370, 570, 770.
Something within proportion to my body, a lot less than what I'm weighing today. Yeah.
Yeah, because when you said it and then you used the word gargantuan, I was like, well, no, actually, I wasn't thinking that was like.
And it's not.
Because if that's large, then Lord, then what am I today? But
It's
go ahead.
no,
Carry
no,
on.
no. So I get that. We go ahead and we pull the date together. We're meeting at. He said, let's meet at this one place. It was Dave and Buster's, because Dave and Buster's was almost exclusive to the Texas back then. So we meet at Dave and Buster's, and he said the weight wasn't going to be a problem. He said, "Do you have a problem with height?" Because he's like, I'm 5'4". I'm like, you know what? If that's the worst thing about you, I can get past that. So we meet at Dave and Buster's. He's sitting at the bar, because when you walk into the particular one we went to, walk
Man.
in, and I see him. He looked at me like Mothra or Godzilla both had walked into that restaurant. His nonverbal was off of the chart. And I
What?
walk up because I'm like, okay, we're going to get past this. We had great conversation for all these weeks. Maybe he's just having a bad day. And I walk up, I'm like, hey, Todd, whatever the hell his name was. And I'm like,
Right.
hey, how you
Carry on.
doing? Right? How you doing? And I go in to hug him. And again, his nonverbal is very closed off. He is looking at me like, oh my God, what have I gotten into? So I sit at the bar and we're talking, and I said, do you want to order a drink? He's like, I ain't paying for no alcohol. I was like, okay,
Oh.
you know what? I have money. I'll buy my own drink. Thank you. Because at that point, I needed a few shots and a beer. So I'm like,
Because when he said I ain't paying for no alcohol, I'm like, neither am I.
because we're sitting at the bar. So, yeah.
Wow.
So I buy myself a drink, and we're sitting there, and I am trying my best to make good of this situation. Because my cousin told me a long time ago, one of my older cousins, she's my mom's age, she said the reason you probably shouldn't turn down dates is because that person may not be the one for you, but that person might lead you to the one. You might hit it off. You have a great friend at this point, and now you've connected them with somebody you know. And in seeing him, I know so many short women. And I already knew if it didn't work out who I would introduce him to. I'm like, okay, so let's get through this. He came across as so rude. I ended it. I'm like, hey, this has been fun, but I don't think we're going to be a match. As I'm walking out, some friends I knew were coming in, and I was like, hey, take care. And he got on with his life because I just wasn't going to do that anymore.
Bye,
The,
Tyrone.
the fact that size matters in everyone's world. We keep trying to tell that lie so we won't hurt the feelings of children. But when we're grown folks having conversations, we know size matter, looks matter. Most people have a type. But if you are not superficial, you probably could get through a date really well without offending, insulting, or just, being totally disrespectful to someone.
And see, and I guess that's where I'm going to go right there, the whole superficial. If you're superficial, then perhaps you just need to stay by yourself or create yourself. What did I see the other day on television about the artificial intelligence? Create yourself the ideal person that you think is best. Because you and other people can chime in when they want to leave comments or, just say something about what we're talking about. But I did not marry someone that I thought that I would marry. Not at all. So I guess when people are suggesting in this day and age, and maybe it is this day that we're living in, that a person has to be a certain size or a certain color or a certain race or a certain this, and their hair has to be this and this, I personally think that there's something wrong with that person who is setting up these parameters of what a person should or shouldn't be. Now, the shouldn't be part, to me, it goes without saying. There are some things that you shouldn't be. But to say that, oh, I can't date you because you're too short, or I can't date you because, you're black or you're white or you're Asian or Hispanic or whatever, I don't understand
If
that.
that's your thing, that's fantastic. Go for it. But if
Well,
you
what is
already
that?
know the person isn't that, don't waste their time inviting them
What
out.
is that's your thing? I mean, I guess that's another little genre of questioning.
Well-
And people, I do want other people to share their points of views and thoughts on it. But what is that you can't see another human being past their exterior?
No. I'm gonna kind of hit pause there. Because, first of all, if you've never been outside of your environment to see
All
anyone
right.
different, then that's going to be your thing. And it might be a little frightening to approach someone else. If you weren't raised in that environment, to know that you can go past that. Okay, let me go back to the military and a dating experience. This wasn't even a
Right.
date. Went out with this guy, white guy, funny as hell. I remember him. We had the greatest time and we hung out quite a bit. He shared with me, and again, this is a generational thing. We got to keep in mind our generation. He shared with me that back home, I forget where he said he was from. I think it was like Virginia or that area, where lynching was a thing in the 60s. But he was
Okay.
madly in love with this young black woman. They had hung out a few times, and he said he couldn't handle the way people looked at them when they went places. And I thought, wow, how horrible that, first of all, that time that he could not love who he wanted to based on the opinions of others, and that even us being out, he was uncomfortable. Where I go, I take me, so I'm having a good time. But for him, he was still very conscious of the way people looked at us. And we weren't dating, we were just hanging out. I was just, one of the guys I went through the police academy with, and we're just hanging out together. No romantic inclinations at all. So, in respect to people making a choice based on physical appearance, I often wonder how many men passed me by because they couldn't handle the fact that there's a stigma attached to black women, that we're all angry and we're all sluts from that generation. We're prostitutes. Because so often what people would tell me over the years was, Gail, why don't you date white guys? You could probably have a better chance with white guys. Even for one of my uncles, when I got out of the military, he kind of gave me permission. He's like, baby, we're going to be okay if you date a white guy, because they saw that black men weren't even acknowledging my existence. And the sad fact is, every white guy that ever asked me out did not understand how to do that because they propositioned me, not knowing the difference.
Okay, so you just said something that sparked another question in my head, and I seem to have a lot of questions today more than answers. But when you're talking about self, okay, and I get it. First of all, you had the experience of being in the military. In the military environment, we both know this because I grew up in the military. The military environment is drastically different than what I would call the outside world. Mm-hmm. Because in the military, you have all different people, and no one really is like necessarily, and this is my experience, I cannot speak for everybody, but I had black friends, white friends, Asian friends, right. So I never had that issue of, other races and that kind of stuff.
Right.
But I guess what I was getting at, you spoke about this Caucasian fellow that was in love with a black woman, mm-hmm. and he allowed society to determine who he was going to be with. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to understand where in that is your self-accountability. And I'm going to just go for the example, and I watched this, I think it was a documentary, on that interracial couple. I forgot where it was, but I think her name was Mildred.
The Loves.
And his name was Richard Loving. That's it. Mm-hmm. Right. And the trials and tribulations that they had to go through, and of course, people are still going through it today. But when you say that I love you and I'm in love with you, do you not have some sort of accountability to yourself to say, you know what, come hell or high water?
No. And here's why. Here's why I'm going with that. Depending on where you're from and the intensity, let me just use this word, trauma of your environment and the people you are around, and it's more than likely people that raised you. That can be very frightening, and it would probably take a few years of therapy. Now, the Lovings are a very special case because he was like, listen, I love her. This is my wife. This is my woman. All y'all go to hell. We're getting married, and we're going to... That type of bravado comes from somewhere deep. But if you've been literally beaten to the point of all sorts of fear just for wanting to love someone. And some environments are incredibly scary. I have a cousin who's been with her husband for many, many years. And his family still says horrible things about her. I was like, you good, because I left his ass with his family.
is a very good point. So he married someone that his family or whoever just don't approve of. But he was just like, bump you.
Yeah.
This is I love, and you're not going to dictate that.
Right.
I think we kind of got hold on a second. I think we kind of got off of. We don't went into a whole other genre of dialogue because
but still
the
dating.
reason why right. But no, what I initially started was, I can't date you because your hair is too long or your hair is too short, and I'm talking about the exterior, not the person, right? So I initially started talking about the person that I won't date you based on your exterior. That's a whole separate problem. Then I won't date you because I'm concerned about what society is going to say, right? Right. That's two different things. Well, but we kind of went way over.
Well, I think I have a type. I mean, when it comes to physical appearance, I do have a type. Am I committed to that type? Absolutely not, because I'd be married to that type if I were committed to it. And if you make me mad, I don't want to see nobody else that looks like you ever again in life.
Well, see, and I'm curious, like, how many people have actually married their type?
Many. Oh my God.
Many people have married their type. No, and I think that's very fascinating because I know I did not marry my type, but I married the right individual.
The one who got your heart. Yeah.
Right, the one who actually has my heart and it will never leave him because he is the one that I know that God sent for me. And I'm really interested in people who, I married my type. I'm into the gym and he's the gym guy that kind of stuff.
No, check this out. Check this out. Here's a type story. And okay, my sister Sean, I'm just going to put her on blast. She'll deal with me later. If I go missing, she did it. Okay. So my sister Sean, beautiful. Growing up, she had like the Pocahontas hair, the ponytails down to her waist, little petite thing. She's barely 5 feet tall, and she was just loved by so many. And I remember women saying, I want my son to marry her because I want some grandbabies with hair like that. That's when people saw my sister Sean, she was like a little Cupid doll. They loved her. I remember her dating this one guy. I won't say his name because I do remember him. And oddly, over the years, actually my brother's name is Tyrone. Over the years, I kept running into this guy. When I was in California, before I went into the military, I ran into him at the mall. When I was in Panama, guarding a secret entrance that the special forces were coming back through. They had come from some type of training. These guys were covered in that really kind of Operation X type garb. They're coming through this gate. I'm just standing there in Panama now, and he comes through the gate, and I'm like, what the hell, man? This man was so enamored with my sister and the way she looked that he married a woman who looked just like her. And he showed me his wife's pictures, and I was like, oh, precious Lord. He was that enamored with my sister. So he found his type, and his wife was Filipino. And my sister, if you stood her in a group of Filipino people, she'd look like him. But he was just taken with her, the way she looked. And he made certain he married someone who looked like that. So that's a strong type attraction.
No, that's actually very interesting in my mind.
And creepy.
You're right. And I was going to say that. I really don't necessarily want to purposely piss anybody off, but I just find that very strange.
But people do have types. People.
No, I mean I get it. I get it. I have a type, but I did not marry my type in the sense of, I'm looking for this particular height, this particular weight, this particular hair. No,
You know what? I'm not going to say it's a type. It's what I'm drawn to more so than not.
It's what you find appealing.
It's what I find appealing, yeah. And it's not necessarily a height. It's definitely leading with the heart, that being congenial and all that. Now, back to the online dating.
Right, because we went way off.
We went all down types of rabbit holes here. eHarmony, again, we are not sponsored. eHarmony, I tried eHarmony also. eHarmony, their claim to fame is that they set you up with various algorithms that will help you find almost the perfect mate that matches everything you match. Okay, so when they were sending me profiles for 70-year-old white men, again, the white part ain't the problem. But I was not in my 70s. I wasn't even in my 50s yet. But you're sending me 70-year-old men
And
as
then
a
they send a little
match.
star saying perfect match.
Perfect match. One
Perfect
of the
match.
men within that pool,
Whew.
I felt so sorry for him because he sent me a message back. His wife had died, and I told you this. His wife had died, and he was looking for someone to take care of him. And I was like, dear Lord, who let Peepaw onto the doggone internet by himself? Because,
And he's, you know, eHarmony thinking he's calling like connected to a nursing home, trying to get
right,
a nurse to come in to see him once a week. Okay.
right. And I even went as far as to take out every I specifically clicked black and Hispanic men and a certain age range, and they still sent me back that demographic. So I'm like, okay, so what y'all are telling me is I need to go get a nursing certification and call it quits with the dating? What the
No, what they
hell?
were saying was, yes, we see what you are requesting. However, we think that you need this. This is where we think you need to go.
It's like that
70-year-old
damn
women.
seventh grade guidance counselor who pretty much told me
Oh,
I'd be a
Jesus.
maid. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. That's why you don't listen to
okay.
those people. But
No,
the
I don't listen to. Actually, I don't listen to very few people, but yeah.
it,
So the
it,
dating. Okay, here's the ultimate question from to a single person that I have.
mm-hmm.
Do you? And I already know your your perspective, but is it hopeless?
No, absolutely
Okay,
not.
tell me
Absolutely
why
not.
it's not hopeless.
It's not hopeless because, first of all, I'm still breathing. I am still hopeful, forever hopeful. I still know me and what I desire. I am out in the community. I don't go out with the expectation of meeting a husband. I go out with the expectation of making new friends, and friendship most times lead to that commitment. My siblings, again, those that are married, each one will say, I married my best friend. Everybody I know my age who got married young will say, I married my best friend. And they are committed to keeping information, especially home stuff, between them two. When they have an
Okay,
issue, their spouse is the first one they call. They're not calling a girlfriend
right.
or one of their buddies, they're calling each other. I do not go out with the expectation of, okay, here. I don't go out with the expectation of, falling head over heels in love in that Disney sense, but I now go out because there was a point where I was like, screw it, the world is crazy. I'm not even leaving my home because no good people exist, and people in general, people
Right.
exist, and I don't want to be bothered with the lunacy that's happening out there. And this past week, I went to a training because I'm traditionally unemployed. I am an entrepreneur, so I have my own little businesses going on, but businesses, not little businesses. And in that environment, I realized I like the energy of being out and around people.
Right.
So my downfall is that I, for a while, just wouldn't go anywhere. And when I first moved to Texas, I was going everywhere. I was out constantly as a single woman, going out to restaurants. I don't like clubs. Oh, God, I hate clubs. When people would visit, they were people who wanted to go to clubs. So I'd find a club, we'd go to a club, I'd be in a corner with my drink, waiting for them to stop doing whatever the hell people do in clubs.
Stop doing the club.
Yeah,
Right.
like, okay, I
That's
need
why.
to get out of here. But
Right.
going to clubs and things like that, you won't find me. And oddly, you won't find me in a church either, because I learned a long time ago Satan will walk right up into church and do the hallelujah dance all up at the altar. So that's not the place to go to find any type of romance specifically. And what I found in most church environments is men were using that as a tool to trick women into going out with them, or that woman who knew where the good guy was coming in with her story. This is an actual story. This woman who met this guy I knew told him all this wonderful stuff about her life and the downfalls, and she was running from this abusive guy, and she just had a good heart, and she was just looking for a good man, and he was a decent guy who didn't find me attractive or wanted to talk to me. He got hooked up with her. He knew she had children. He knew she had 3. He did not anticipate the other 3 showing up, so now there's 6 with 6 different daddies. 6 different daddies. So she had played this game across the United States, and before he could get out of it, she was pregnant again. And I'm looking at him like, the hell? How did you not find me attractive? How did you not?
Okay, well, see, I'm actually kind of glad he didn't find you attractive.
Yeah,
because he sounds like a fool.
He sounds a little weak.
Seriously. Okay, I want to go back to something else you said, and you kind of like hit a chord with me on like the church, because I do go to church, and I go to church every possible Sunday that I can go to church, and then I participate at the church. But what I have found, even at not just the church I go to, but churches that I have gone to, is that Satan comes in all shapes and sizes. Not just men, not just, it's not just the men. There are some women that come up into the church, and they are looking for their husband.
Yes, 100%.
And they don't care if their husband is already somebody else's husband.
No, they don't. They
don't care. And I have seen this firsthand. And I'm only mentioning it because you mentioned the church, and you know how I feel about church. I think you know how I feel about church. I don't believe that you have to go to church to talk to God.
Not at all.
You go to church for fellowship and coming together and hearing of the word and sharing of the word and that kind of thing. But I think that there are some people, and you hit the nail right on the head, because I agree, Satan will come up in the church, because let's not forget who Lucifer originally was, right? He was the choir director, right? So, yeah, he was up there over the praise and worship team. But nonetheless, is that we have to remind ourselves that he comes to and fro. So he comes in so many different varieties and groups that it does not matter if you are a married man, single man, married woman, single woman, because I do have a little quick, short, and it's really quick and short, church story. Not at the church that I am currently going to, but a church I actually attended in Georgia, where an actual married man approached me in the church. I was single. He approached me in the church, and I knew he was married. But he wanted me to go out and have coffee or have, a lunch with him. And my question to him was, "Are you bringing your wife?" And he was like, "Oh, no, she's not into going out and that kind of stuff." And I thought to myself, wait a second, you're sitting up in this church with your wife, and you just asked me out. How does that work? It doesn't, obviously.
This is how it works, because I ended a friendship. And any man who knows me, and I know his wife, they already know I will bring her in on it, because she's going to hear me screaming at the top of my lungs, "You're a dumbass." This guy I'd gone to school with, and mind you, I'd graduated from Dallas Baptist University. He was there to become a preacher. He was becoming ordained, or whatever the process is in that. Invited me to church with him and his wife. Well, his wife didn't show up the day we met up at this church. And his entire platform was, she didn't understand him. You've been married over a minute. That's a minute longer than I've known you. So I don't know how you anticipate me knowing more about you than a woman you're married to. So he was having a bad day. He's going on. I was like, I really don't care. You need to talk to your wife about that.
Wow.
Several weeks after that, I moved, and I had a moving party. So I invited everybody I knew to my moving party. Him and a friend are the only 2 who showed up. And I mean, I invited family. I invited like 20 people. 2 people showed up.
All right. Wow.
So after they got me moved, I got everybody pizza, because they knew I didn't have money to pay, and that's what family and friends do. I gave them each a pizza, a whole pizza. And as he was leaving, his friend had convinced him to tell me how he really felt about me.
Wow.
I was like, you know what? I've known you long enough. You should know better. You are trying to become a pastor. I know your wife. I've been in your house. I've met your children, and this is
Wow.
insulting. And I never spoke to him again after that. Had
Well,
no
yeah.
idea. And had known him for the 2 years I was at the school because we were, the communications classes we took, we kind of traveled with that same group. So our study groups were the same. And I'm like, no, that's not cool. Don't come on to me like that. And if you're freshly out of a marriage, you should not be dating. Get
Yeah,
your
no.
You need a therapist or a weed man. Pick
Take,
one.
take a moment to yourself.
Yeah.
And you might get a therapist and some weed. I don't know, but
Yeah.
I just you said pick one. I'm like, well, you you named it down with both. But okay, so from the whole the whole dating aspect, that it's not hopeless.
Mm-mm. It's not hopeless at
That
all.
you just need to stay out there. You need to,
Be
be active
visible.
and right, be visible, be active, be out there. Keep your mind open.
Determine what you truly want, and you
Right.
have to be in that environment. We were talking about the last guy that asked me out, which was a few weeks ago, and I was
No.
telling it wasn't even a few weeks ago, it was
Okay.
last weekend. And I had to go to the laundromat. And this guy, I saw him when he came in, as bless him, he was a vibrant spirit, and he had his turquoise shirt on and the neon orange shorts.
I
And
said, please don't mention anything other than
that's
that.
it.
Just leave it right
That's
there.
it.
Yeah,
That's
just leave
it.
it there. That's a
And
picture painted all by itself.
right?
Yeah.
He asked for my number, and I'm like, okay, Gail, you say you want to be out. First of all, again, be conscious of the environments you are in when you want to date and understand the type of, you have to find someone who is a mutual match to not just your personality, but the circles you travel in. So when he asked me for my number, I'm like, okay, I already know this is a bad idea. But there was there was something about him. I was like, okay, I'm going to give him my number, and we can chat. There might be something there. And we did have something in common. We were both in the military because I had on my Air Force shirt and just some workout shorts, tennis shoes. I was not cute at all. I was laundromat
Oh,
cute.
yes, you were. Yes,
Yeah,
you were.
yeah, I was laundromat cute. And in the
There you go.
process of it took about 15 minutes. I'm going to get my stuff out of the dryer, and he follows me, and we're talking, and he tells me, "You a fine looking woman. You a fine looking woman. You built up good. I said that when I came into myself. That's a fine looking woman." And I'm like, okay, I'm a
I'm
fine
sorry.
looking
Did
woman.
you say did he really say you're built up good?
Built up good. Yeah, I'm built up
Okay.
good. He
All
was
right.
he was 62. Not a problem. That's not like 82. I'm not dating
Okay,
nobody.
but you built up good.
Built up
That's,
good.
what am I, a show horse? What does that mean? Good.
That means
Okay.
I'm a fine looking woman. Like he said, I'm a fine looking
No,
woman.
that goes right there. I can get down with the fine
It's,
looking woman, but
it's kind of a
okay.
southern thing. It is. It's a southern
Okay.
thing.
Okay, see, there you go. Maybe that's where
Yeah.
you lost me with the whole you built up good.
Built up good. So
Anyway,
he continues, and he wanted to know what else we had in common. He asked me where I like to eat, if I like flowers, if I like candy, and he went on to say, "You got a nice body. I can see you naked through your clothes."
Oh.
And then he invites me to his church because he's a pastor. I'm like, Lord, do they teach this crap in these churches? Like, how do you even make sense of that? How do you put that together? I
You
can
know,
see you naked through your clothes. I'm a pastor. You want to come? So I don't know. Did he want to baptize me or something? Or I couldn't even make
he
sense
wanted
of
to
it.
baptize you. All right.
And as I left, he attempts
Oh my
to help
God.
me out with my clothes, messing up my laundry basket. We
Oh,
got to
God.
my car, and I already know I am not accepting calls from this man. As I'm standing at my car, he's still talking to me, and he reached out as if he was getting ready to kiss me. He was coming at
Wow.
me full blown lips. I'd already
Wow.
told the man about my
Wow.
military background, what I did in the military. I mentioned that I had brothers. I
Wow.
mentioned that I may or may not have some still residue of anger issues. And as he leans into me, I did it's a strategic tactical move where you push somebody back with your forearm. And technically, I could have just, knocked him to the ground, but I didn't go that far. I moved him back away from me. I got my car door in between us. I shook his hand tightly and I said, hey, you got my number, call me. Before I got home, he had called about 4 or 5 times. Now, I blocked him, so it went straight to voicemail. This is the type of thing that, when I say pay attention to your environment and go to the environment with the mindset of the person you want to attract, be very cautious and conscious of that. Because whereas you think you're just doing your laundry, look around at the people at the laundromat.
Who are checking you out and going to come over and let you know that you built up good.
Built up good. Needless to
I'm
say,
gonna let it go. Go
needless
ahead.
to say, I'm pricing washers and dryers right now because
Yeah.
that should not happen again. But I should not allow myself to be taken out of an environment where I can again meet someone. Take
Right.
yourself on dates. I found in my 20s that was a lot of fun. Go to a restaurant, go to a jazz festival, bring your chair, bring your water, sit back. Normally, I meet a bunch of drunk people who want to know why I'm there by myself because you're a good looking woman. Why are you here alone? I'm not alone. There are like 300 people here. So,
Okay.
making that assumption. And here's another thing to be addressed when you're single and dating of any age. And this is for people who know single people. Stop asking the silly questions. Stop asking the silly questions. Why are you single is not valid because of my generation. The suggestion was that the only way a woman would get married is if a man asked her. There was a courting ritual and a man asked her to marry. Ask me, can I have the phone numbers of the men you used to date so I can go and ask them what the hell is wrong with them? Because I'd like to know why you're single. Because you shouldn't
Why
be.
isn't that kind of odd that you ask anybody anything like that? Why would you
Oh.
even? What kind of question is that?
Oh, here's a
Why
better
are you
question
single?
I was recently
Why are
asked.
you married?
No,
What?
here's a better question I've been recently asked.
Oh God.
Can you even have children?
Oh. Okay. I don't. Is this in Texas? Because I'm like, what?
Can
Can
you
have
even
children?
have children? I was like, that's not a trial and error thing for me personally. I know women
Okay.
that have attempted to get pregnant or even got pregnant to see if they could get pregnant, aborted the child because they just wanted to know if they could get pregnant, and then,
Okay.
got on with their
Gail,
lives.
I'm sorry. This all starting to sound like some Twilight Zone type of stuff.
Ain't it? Ain't
Okay.
this Black Mirror?
I never watched that. But
That's great.
I understand
That's
what
great.
you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
It is. I may watch it. I
Mhm.
just may watch it. But who are asking these types of personal questions like that?
This person-
To someone that they
this-
just feel like what?
No, this person I did know. Known for years.
Gail,
Mhm.
I've known you for years. Have I ever asked you why are you not married? Are you able to have children?
Uh-uh.
What?
One more time.
Why do you
One
ask
more time.
questions like that?
One more time. It's
Okay,
a
sorry.
different mindset in the South. I have endured. I have a relative. Several, no. Let me even take it back further. Excuse me. It's kind of the reason I stopped going to family reunions, because I have one cousin in particular. Literally every time I see her, every time, is you funny? And that is the New Orleans way of asking, are you gay? And normally I respond with, I think I'm hilarious. But her question to me since my 20s, since I went into the military, and she told me I should be ashamed of myself for taking a job from a man. We're talking about a demographic in an
I didn't
area.
have a job on. Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about people that have stayed within their 15 blocks the majority of their lives.
Whew.
Okay. The same person, and the exact same person just a few years ago asked me the same question, as if you turned gay after I don't know what her
Is she married?
She's been married to someone who used to slap the mess out of her for over 30, 40 years. Yeah.
Oh oh, that kind of makes sense right there. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not condoning that at all, of course, but that does make a little bit of sense, because I think that when you start inquiring about other people's dispositions, there's something going on with you.
100%.
Why are you so concerned about if I am gay, or why I'm not married, why I am married, who I'm married?
Hold up.
Yeah.
Hold up. It gets better.
Wait.
It gets better, because in talking to another relative around the same age as this person, these people are in their 70s. They're in their 70s. And I was talking to another one of my relatives, and I was like, I don't know what her motivation is for this. She keeps asking me, I keep answering. And the cousin I was talking to started laughing and said, well, I'm going to start telling people you gay, because that's just funny to me, and I don't know why she's asking that. And I said, let me explain to you why you stop saying stuff like that about anyone. Because if I'm hopeful for a relationship and my family is standing around laughing, joking about how I am gay, all you self-proclaimed good Christians have just validated to someone within earshot that I am gay. And if there's a man in that room who has a slight interest in me, he just walked away. Because my family...
I just want to add, I'm sorry. Gail, I'm about to get on the plane and come to Texas and just hang out for a minute. But I just want to, again, you brought up Christianity. That's not Christian behavior. That just isn't. But then again, you're getting into religion and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And religion, we know, we've already talked about this, it's man. And anytime you have man, it's going to be flawed. So you're not a good Christian if you are stereotyping people and putting people into boxes and categories. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Exactly.
If you want to act like you're a good Christian, then I think that you actually need to pay attention to how Jesus behaved when he was walking this earth. He did not put people into boxes and categorize and, isolate and all that silliness that, us people in this society that we live in now, call ourselves Christians, tend to do. So,
and I'm trusting and believing they will hear. But literally, in talking to the group that have this issue with me being single and without children, literally will start a conversation by talking about, and I quote, their statement is, I am a good Christian, and I've heard that since I was a child.
Well, here's the other thing. If you have to proclaim it,
there you go. Say it.
Your dialogue.
Speak it.
I'm just right. I'm going to get my tambourine out. But I'm just saying, if you have to proclaim it, then there's already a problem, because your actions and your behavior should speak for itself.
It's counterproductive. Yeah.
It should speak for itself. So bump that. I'm a good Christian, because I just think that's asinine and just mental.
But here's something I want to put out for.
Yes, I'm sorry. I wanted to go back to the inquiry as to why you're single. I guess I have just never seen or heard. I don't know. Maybe it is a Southern thing, and I'm pretty sure people will chime in and say, "Well, no, it's not." You probably hear it in Arizona, Frankie. And you probably just don't pay attention to it, and that's probably the truth. But I just don't understand why people feel the need to tell you or anyone, not just you, I'm talking in general, how your life should be.
I have lived in the South, Louisiana, Texas, respective. They call it the Mid-East, Indiana. I've lived in California.
The
Midwest.
Midwest. For whenever when you said the Mid-East, I just heard Middle East.
Right. It's actually,
fine.
They consider it the Midwest, Indiana. Okay. And from those two areas, I have gotten it the worst in regards to being single. And the dynamics, and it's normally women. I have been empowered by men in my circle, my uncles, my brothers. My dad don't give a damn. He's like, live your life, it's your life, and you're the only one who get to live it. So in that respect, as harsh as that sounds, he still empowered me to live my life on my terms. But most of the women in my family have had this thing where, first of all, you don't, and that was my mother's detriment. You don't leave home as a girl without being married. And my mother married, no disrespect to him, he has passed on. She married her first husband to get the hell away from her relatives. She wasn't marrying somebody because she was super duper in love. Right. She wanted to get away, and it to her detriment, because he was very abusive. So that whole thing with women not knowing how to mind their own damn business is a lot of the issues with young women, specifically the ones I know and in the area. And I encourage any young woman who is in that environment to learn how to love from a distance. I love my family
Yeah, for
dearly,
real.
but I
Yes.
get to live my life on my terms. And if they knew the extent of how I lived, they would first of all stop with the "are you gay" thing. They wouldn't be worried about if I got kids or not. There's no shortage of children in my family. It's like 9 million every time I go to a family event. They would not be saying hateful things as a
But
joke or otherwise.
I'm sorry. I'm also going to just say, and if they were to just take, what is the word I'm looking for? Self-reflection. Just look on your own life. What is missing in your own life
And build
that
upon
you
that.
need
Yeah.
to be in mind?
Yeah.
To me, that's what it speaks to, because in my mindset, if I'm all up in your business, how am I taking care of mine?
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
But
what is wrong with you?
here's the beauty of it. The generation, the 20 something year olds now in my family are fleeing. They are fleeing. And I don't know if I've had any degree of influence with that, but several of them have recognized and have made statements about how they flat out can't stand being around certain people. And then they'll say things like, "Well, Gail, how did you get?" I said, "I learned to love people from a distance." You get to do that. You get to travel. You get to see the world. You get to marry who you want. You don't get to be forced into a marriage because mama them standing around calling you a slut because you kissed a boy. And it starts like that in my family. I was called a slut for the first time at 10 years old because I was developing cleavage.
They didn't understand that just is a
It happens.
natural.
It happens. And the sad part of it is the person who did it is the same person who told me I'd never get married because I was fat, because I was 12 and starting to blossom and everything. And this person had the most dynamic intro to help me develop into a young woman because she'd been in beauty pageants. And she could have very easily, instead of calling me a slut and laughing, she could have very easily said, "Hey, Gail, okay, first, sweetie, don't sit like that. Here's how we do it in the pageants." And I would have been so drawn in by that.
So here's my question: where is she now?
We're not going to discuss that. But
Okay.
she's healthy
Okay.
and living her life. She is. She's
Can
healthy
I-
and living her life, but she's also in her
Okay,
70s.
but here's my question, and the reason I asked that question, as you were describing how she was speaking to you, I didn't see a healthy person. I don't see.
She
a
is
healthy
not
person.
emotionally healthy even
I don't know
now.
who we're talking. I really don't know who we're talking about, and I
No,
don't
you don't.
wanna
You've
know.
never met this person. No.
Yeah, and I don't want to know, but all the things that you were saying that this person was saying at 10 and to you at 10 and 12 years old and that kind of stuff. My next point is just that. Where are you now, and how happy of a human being are you actually?
Not
now,
very. Not very.
Yeah,
But see,
because you couldn't have been happy then.
no. And things like that. Also in respect to dating, because we kind of started there. And-
Good. Okay, now we're in family therapy.
Right. In respect to dating, especially, again, generationally, demographic. When you're talking specifically to young women in any environment, it has not changed. The differences between male and female, I don't see, even when we get into LGBTQ, I do not see a difference in male and female. We are still treating people in regards to that line, and the psychological manipulation that happens as we're growing up, it still goes on. But if you want your daughters, your nieces, your granddaughters to get into healthy relationships, you got to mirror that, and you've got to be emotionally available to them, so that when they get to a point of wanting to date, there's someone in the family they can actually talk to. I had people in the family, those that weren't calling me names, were trying to teach me how to be, and I'll quote, a good hoe. Okay?
Oh,
That's the dynamics.
Another episode.
A whole
Yeah.
nother episode. Okay?
Yeah, because that's just straight
Crazy. Crazy. And might I segue here? This also is not sponsored, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I wrote a book called The Accidental Blessing, which is based off of my accident last year, which knocked me out of having the traditional job where you go and you have the 401k and all that stuff. And in trying to identify, because relationships for me overall have been very chaotic and weird in all platforms, not just romantic, but family and friends and work, and me trying to understand my connection more so with God, if that's the disconnect that I'm having, whereas my relationships are so chaotic. And in writing that, I had to reflect back on some of the issues that I was dealing with that made me disconnect from people. And I realized getting a speech before we moved out of New Orleans from a family member. I think, yeah, it was a family member who was explaining to me that if I was going to be a hoe, be a good hoe, and know how to operate not on a street corner, but how to, they literally told me how to go and get a hotel room and all of the
Wow.
dynamics of prostitution. We moved
Wow.
out of New Orleans in 1973. I was 8 years old getting that speech.
Wow.
Okay?
Okay.
So if you
Yeah.
are that person who wants success in your family and don't want your sons and daughters bringing home crazy people to connect to the family tree, you've got to be a better example of what should be coming through, because we're not marrying or dating in respect to building tribes and communities anymore. It's just a whole free for all, willy nilly sort of thing. But
Right.
at this age, 100%, I get to make a conscious decision of where I go, who I meet, and who I choose to date. I'm
Right.
still hopeful, therefore, the environments I go into are conducive to the type of people I would not mind introducing to my family and friends.
Right.
And in respect to dating, everybody listen to me on this for the love of God. If you have a family that connects and they are very attached to each other, don't bring just anybody home. Because the few times I've gone out, most of the reason a lot of people think I'm gay is because they've never really seen me with anyone. But you don't get to come home with me and meet my family if you're not serious about me, because I don't want them talking about you 15 years after the fact. When I'm done with you, we're all done with you. And I need that to happen. And even the last guy I went out with, I foolishly took him to some family things because he seemed sane. He was not. And months after ending that, I was still being asked about him until one of my nieces, I love my nieces and nephews, God, I love them. One of my nieces turned to the person who asked about him and said, "You didn't get the memo? We ain't never gonna see him again. Stop talking about him."
Okay, keep it moving. Good Lord.
So don't date, don't get to the point where you're so hungry for attention and affection that you will accept anything. Be hopeful. Continue to be
So it all
hopeful.
comes down to self-worth,
Yeah.
self-respect, self-value.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's the crux of it all.
Yeah. So being
And of
single.
course,
hmm
go ahead, sorry.
Well, no, being single is not a horrible thing, because when I talk to married people, you were mentioning the other day that you can't just decide to go to Vegas with the girls one weekend and, on the way out the door, you're yelling at Alaire,
Oh, by
"Hey,
the way, honey, I'm
Right.
going to Vegas.
right." You have to have a
Yeah.
discussion about that. If I want to go to Vegas for the weekend, hey,
You
where are
just
we
have to go to
staying?
Vegas.
That's
Right.
that's all I need to know. Where are we staying, and how long? The end.
Right.
I don't have to consult with anyone but
There's no
God.
second dialogue.
God and my bank account.
Right. No, seriously. And that's what I was telling. I think you and I were talking about that, right? In reference to a friend of mine who I love to pieces. She's my scary movie friend. We go to scary movies together, and we usually laugh through every single one of them because they're never really scary. But she's very happy being single, and she is that person that will be like, "Hey, I'm going to Ireland for 3 weeks, and I'll be back in 3 weeks, or I'm doing this, whatever." And I know that she is absolutely happy with being single.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike another friend of mine that is not. She's not happy being single. She wants to be in a relationship. She's the same one that started this dialogue between the two of us yesterday about meeting men and meeting the right type of men. She doesn't, she's not picky about, your race, your color, and all that, and your creed and all that. But she's a solid human being, and she's looking for a solid man.
Mm-hmm.
And she actually asked me, and I have to go back for a second. She actually asked me if there was any single men at the church that I attend, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that there are. I'm pretty sure that there are, but I would not recommend to you coming to a church for the purpose of using it as a dating platform, because that's not where you come to church to do as a dating platform.
And most churches have a singles ministry.
Right, and then we do have a singles ministry, but that's not a dating platform, right? In the sense of, I'm coming to church only to find a spouse or, a hookup or whatever you're doing. But I did recommend to her, that's why I was asking you yesterday, how to get out there and, be visible and make sure that you are self-aware first, have self-respect, understand who you are and what you want. Because I do believe that you do attract what you think about yourself. Whatever you're thinking about yourself, you're going to attract it. Whether it is it's an obvious or it's somewhere deep rooted. She, bless her heart, like I told you, her husband passed away about 10 years ago, and she was really hard on herself because she blamed herself for her husband's death. She did not kill her husband, but I'm sorry, I just thought it was funny because we would say stuff like this. But anyway, she didn't kill her husband. He died of actual natural causes, but there were some issues that, that were initial clues that something was wrong, and neither one of them paid attention to those clues. Yeah. So when he died, she did blame herself. So she stayed out of the whole dating scene. I'd probably say for at least 4 or 5 years. She was like, I'm done. I'm not going to get married ever again or whatever. And then something clicked. I still do. I feel sad because she is a good person, and I know that she deserves a good man. Mm-hmm. Her problem is she's like, I don't know where to find him. And I just simply say, I know some people are going to be like, here she go again, but I'm just going to simply say, if you keep God first and you keep yourself intact and stop worrying about what is out there and who's out there and will I ever find him, will he ever find me, well, blah, 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 blah. It will happen.
Well, here's the thing. And when people used to say, stop looking, I never understood what that meant. I understand that now. And I've never really been looking because he who finds a wife, I never felt like I was supposed to be looking. I was conscious of my surroundings and very cognizant of the type of person I wanted to be with. But in respects to stop looking, basically what that means is live your life. Go to a sporting event where the men outnumber the women constantly. Pay attention to not just if he's wearing a ring, if he has a tan line where a ring used to be because his trifling ass decided to take the ring off. Pay attention to all of that. Pay attention to what his friends are saying about him. Does he have friends? Where are his friends? Do you see family members around him? What do people say about him? Where are you going? If you're going to ladies' night out for knitting, there probably won't be no men there if men are what you desire. So that's kind of counterproductive. Start looking at venues and things of the type or caliber or whatever you are interested in. Are you going to go and hang out at a laundromat knowing that person does not have a washer dryer at home? Think about that for a moment. Why don't you have a washer dryer at home? This man I met at the laundromat, as we conversed, I realized he was living in a 1-bedroom apartment, had retired from 2 separate jobs over the course of his 60 years, and was still talking about, his money problems. And I'm like, okay, so you mismanage your money is what you're telling me. Because if you have 2 retirement checks coming in, one from the military, one from the post office, and you're working on a 3rd one, that's a problem right there. Yeah, no. You got some extra things going on.
And might I I think another thing that some women need to stop doing, and I usually don't tell people what they need to stop doing, but stop dropping your panties
Yeah.
on your first meet.
Yeah, I don't even understand that.
No, I just find that it's like, really, you just slept with the person and you just met the person. What is that?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So,
dangerous. That is dangerous. Forget every other moral connotation attached to it and understand it's dangerous on a bunch of different levels. And I don't trust the fact that everyone has cameras in their houses now. So I don't need to be in your house for any amount of time. And I don't need to be out in public with you. When that silly song came out back in the day where one of the lines in it was, and we got busy in a Burger King bathroom. Do you know how many babies were conceived in Burger King bathrooms after that song? Because silly people thought it would be funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get to know you first. There is no other person on this planet you have to be with. And if you don't know the one you are with constantly, then you're going to fall for a whole bunch of crap. A whole bunch of crap.
True story. It just is. But I think that is a great stopping point.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I think it's a great stopping point.
Yeah.
But I don't want to kill this conversation.
Oh, because I got 9 million other bad dating stories. They just piled up. And all took place in 2 years.
I know that we weren't going to land and stay permanently on the loss of relationship or the perceived loss of a relationship, but I think that we're in a season where there's so many crazy things going on in the marital environment as well in the single environment, that this is a worthy topic to talk a little bit further on. So I don't know what your take is on it, but
what I'd like to explore and what I'd like to ask, especially of single people that are listening, regardless of your age, because we can all glean from each other and learn some new techniques. I personally like talking to young people because, number one, they make me laugh because they do stuff that for my generation not have happened. And still ain't gonna happen because I still have the mindset of that makes no sense to me. So don't even recommend it. But young people can help you understand some trends and things that will bring you out of your comfort zone and help you release the fear that you have. I've been, again, military around the world. I've done some stuff that makes no sense to anyone other than the people that were with me. Falling in snake holes, sleeping in elephant grass, getting chased by various animals, monkeys in the Philippines, if I might just go ahead and put that out there. But if you've never zip-lined, that is exhilarating, and that is one of the many exercises people use to help overcome fear. Find a group of young people that do some things that are borderline killing fear, crossing the line over into sheer stupidity, and do some stuff with them. There are these things called pub walks. If you like adult libation, if you like alcohol and you are not an alcoholic, but you just like going out every now and then, find a pub walk and hang out with some young folks and do that. It's hilarious. It's a lot of fun. You meet some people. And here's the thing about hanging out with, if you're not a cougar or whatever they call men who date younger people, if that's not your personality.
What do they call men that date younger women?
Rich.
Oh, okay, sugar daddy.
They call them rich.
Why do they have such a nice little title and older women have cougar?
We have cougar. But if that is not your personality, here's the thing you do. What happens if you are in your 50s and you are now dating? If you're hanging out with somebody in their 20s and their dad is a widower and he's a good guy, guess who you get introduced to? So broaden your mind. If you're young and you want to meet people who are your age and you're hanging out with someone in their 50s and that woman who has a son who's an engineer who's kind of shy but he's a good guy, guess who you get introduced to? If you're a nice guy and you're in your 20s and you meet that older woman who has a granddaughter and she's like, you are a nice young man, guess who you get introduced to? So broaden your perspective. Stop it with the isms. Stop being afraid of everything and everybody. get out, meet some people, love yourself first. Stop
Hell,
being
I
an
think that's in general.
asshole. If you are an ass, stop that. If you are a narcissist, get a therapist. If you're afraid of everything, find a therapist and some weed or some, a couple shots of liquor.
Or a zip line. Just find a zip
Or
line.
a zip line.
I've never
Get a zip line. And
Yeah.
on that note, thank you. We welcome you back for the next session of Being in the Lost and Found with Gail and Frankie. Frankie and Gail. We're going to keep this going, and we're going to keep the discussion about relationships going. So, single people, drop us a note. Are you happy being single? Married people, how happy were you before you got married?
No, I have something for the married people because I'm really curious about some married people, and I would like some married people to chime in as to what do they think is causing this high rate of divorce that's going on. I'm really curious as to what other married people are thinking about their friends or family that they are aware of that are contemplating or actually going through or have gone through a divorce. What do you think as a married person, and obviously you can only speak from your perspective of your marriage, that is causing this crazy rate of divorce? So I'd like to hear that from some married people.
Because that does influence single people, because we look at it and go, why the hell get married? Because everyone's getting a divorce.
No, it's kind of crazy. So I'd like to hear some feedback from some married people as to what their take is on this whole divorce craziness.
Fantastic. All right, everyone. Thank you from the Welcome to the Lost and Found. Enjoy your day. Enjoy yourself.
That sounds kind of weird.
I know.
Enjoy the day and enjoy yourself. You know what? I was going to say, have a great day.
Have a great day as we leave the Lost and Found.
And enjoy yourself. All right. I'm sorry, Gail. Let's just go ahead and just say goodbye.
Goodbye from the...
Goodbye.